Well, there was a baseball contest in Cleveland last night. You may have heard or seen a thing or two about. That city's team took on the Cubs of Chicago. Game 1 of the World Series. And boy, did it open the Fall Classic with quite a flourish for the home folks.
High fly ball into left, at the wall, goodbye. 6-0 Indians.
That 8th inning home run from Roberto Perez was in fact his second of the game. As you heard, it put Cleveland up 6-0, and that would be your final. Jake Arrieta will face Trevor Bauer tonight in Game 2. Discuss then what we saw last night. Matt Snyder joins us, the CBS Sports writer, and joins us from his hotel room there in the fine city of Cleveland to discuss it all. Matt, we do appreciate the time, and I mentioned we saw him there, the unlikeliest of heroes, and there were some to choose from, emerged last night. A light-hitting catcher, no more. What'd you make of what you saw from him and the other inflection points in Game 1?
Well, it was an unbelievable performance for Perez, and good for him. And the one thing I really took away was, remember, the Indians traded for Jonathan Lucroy, an all-star catcher, right in front of the trade deadline. But Lucroy exercised his no-trade clause. So the Indians were, quote-unquote, stuck with this kid now, and here he comes through becoming a World Series hero. Also, I would say Francisco Lindor, a star player for the Indians, a young kid. He kind of emerged on the national stage, and Corey Kluber was unbelievable on the mound, especially his two-seam fastball and the way he was front-dooring it to left-handed hitters on the Cubs. It was just all in all a masterclass by the Indians. A
lot of people saying that to win this, we might have to see Corey Kluber 3 times from Cleveland, and as you mentioned, we saw why. 9 Ks over 6, 8 in the first 3 innings, etc. Record that had a sample size of over 1,500 games. So when you're doing something never before seen in baseball, it is quite something. And yet, first sign of trouble, and here comes Andrew Miller. What did you make of what we saw from the LCS MVP, both in getting into and then out of trouble?
I was actually surprised he didn't start the 7th inning clean. I thought that once Kluber got through 6, Francona was going to go to Miller for 2 and Allen for 1. That's kind of been their MO. In fact, my hunch is moving forward, we might see Miller a lot earlier in the non-Kluber games. But in terms of Miller, he wasn't near as sharp. He was throwing a lot of balls. He never walks anybody, but he actually walked Kyle Schwarber. It was the second left-hander he's walked in 2016. He got out of the bases loaded jam. That was great, but he wasn't nearly as sharp. I don't think it's that much of a concern for the Indians moving forward, but it was at least interesting.
He can be mortal, if only for a couple of innings, to be sure. Meanwhile, Joe Madden, it's going to happen at this time of year. Second guess for a couple of decisions this morning as we all Wednesday morning quarterback to just mangle metaphors and sports. Anything you saw that you took issue with?
I could probably stand to see Carl Edwards Jr. in more high leverage situations instead of Justin Grimm and maybe even Hector Rondon, but I didn't think either one of those things was egregious. The one thing a lot of people are focusing on was, with 2 outs and the bases loaded, down 3-0 against Andrew Miller, having David Ross hit, especially when Wilson Contreras had pinch hit and was going to come in to catch. For me, I didn't think that was bad at all. Jorge Soler is the pinch hit option. He's a lower on base guy than David Ross. There's 2 outs and the bases loaded, and Ross almost drew the walk. You just can see right there that he barely checked his swing. If he would have held it back a little bit more, it would have been a bases loaded walk, and the top of the order would have been coming up. I didn't think that was a bad decision at all.
Of course, Dodgers fans can still feel the pain of Wilson Contreras at the plate, that's for sure. So on to tonight, Jake Arrieta, Trevor Bauer. It looks like something of a mismatch as we look ahead to Game 2. What do you be watching for?
We need to look at the command of both guys. Both are apt to missing their spots and getting knocked around if they are badly missing their spots, or putting guys on base, or even hitting guys and just having it go all over the place. So with the extra rest that both have had, and Trevor Bauer coming off the drone accident that sliced up his pinky finger on his pitching hand, how's the command going to be? If Bauer's all over the place, the Cubs can really knock him around. If Arrieta's all over the place, the Indians are going to be able to draw a lot of walks and run. He's actually easier to steal on than John Lester, per the numbers of this season. So a lot of it is going to come down to who has the better command in the early innings.
Cubs fans certainly happy to see a World Series game played at Wrigley for the first time in over a century. Perhaps not, though, if they are down 0-2. Matt Snyder of CBS Sports. Boy, do we appreciate the time.
Thank you.